Close the door here. No, that door. He's going to go now.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Listeners and viewers, welcome to E-Reminders with our Shaykh, Abu Usama At-Thahabi. Welcome to the show, Shaykh.
Hayakum Allah wa bayak. Thanks for having me.
You just traveled back to us in the United Kingdom. So I hope all is well with you and in these first few days of Ramadan.
Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. Ramadan Mubarak. Pray to Allah Azza wa Jalla and ask him by his greatest name to let this be a fruitful Ramadan for all of us, productive, one that is going to be pleasing to him.
Ameen. And on today's show, which it will be a weekly show at 6 o'clock on Thursdays, we're going to be focusing today on just the question and answer questions that brothers and sisters may have that pertain to the issue of Ramadan. But before we start the question and answer, I would like to, if you could give us the opportunity of hearing some advice on some reminders on the topic.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. I just want to mention to our community, because it is my practice that whenever Ramadan begins, at the beginning of Ramadan, right before Ramadan, I like to tell the community members, brothers and sisters, that Ramadan is one of the many examples how Allah Azza wa Jalla has given us a religion that is easy. I came from America and I was on a plane, and Hasidic Jews were with me on the plane. It was a community of them. And just observing them and looking at them, you could see that their religion was difficult. They didn't take into consideration the other passengers. They had no fiqh. It's like a Muslim, if he's on the plane and he wants to pray, he prays right in the aisle where the stewardess has to go up and down to serve the passengers. They were doing things like that, rocking like they do at the Wailing Wall in our Palestine. I'm not saying this to put the Jews down. I'm saying this because this has been mentioned in the Quran. When the Prophet ﷺ was described, and Allah Azza wa Jal told Bani Israel, the Yahud, that they should accept the Nabi al-Ummi, the Rasul, who can't read and write. One of the descriptions that Allah said about Prophet Muhammad ﷺ coming to Yahud is that he said, وَيَدْعُ عَنْهُمْ إِسْرُهُمْ وَالْأَغْلَالَ الَّتِي كَانَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ. That this Rasul, this Nabi, this unlettered Rasul messenger, he's going to take off of their shoulders the difficulty that they have in their religion. And he's going to take and free them from the chains that they have in their religion. So one of the difficulties that they had as a result of them being rough and tough is that Allah was tough on them. Allah was tough on them. So if Bani Israel, if the Yahud made a mistake, the way that they made Tawbah is they had to kill themselves. There's an ayat of the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah like that. When Musa said to his people, with قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ يَا قَوْمِ إِنَّكُمْ ظَلَمْتُمْ أَنفُسَكُمْ بِاتِّخَاذِكُمُ الْعِجْلِ فَتُوبُوا إِلَى بَارِئِكُمْ فَاقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ ذَلِكُمْ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ عِنْدَ بَارِئِكُمْ فَتَابَ عَلَيْكُمْ. And remember when Musa said to his people, my people, you have wronged your souls by worshiping the calf. So make Tawbah to your Creator and kill yourselves. That is better for you with your Creator, and he'll make Tawbah on you. Now, we make Tawbah. If a person makes shirk, like making dua to a dead person in the grave, it's not just a sin that's haram, it's shirk. And if Bani Israel fell into something like that, they wouldn't just make Tawbah, they had to kill themselves. So that is an example of how those people had a religion that was tough. And it was like that because they were tough. They asked too many questions. Allah commands you to slaughter a cow. They said, what color cow? How is the cow? What day is the cow? And that's why the Prophet told us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Dharuni ma taraktukum. Leave me as long as I leave you. Because the people went before you, they were destroyed because they kept asking excessive questions and they kept going against their prophets and their messengers, and they were being tough on people. Now, a lot can be said. I just want to remind our ummah, the month of Ramadan is a manifestation of the fact that Allah has made our religion easy. So you guys remember that. In the ayat of fasting in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah mentioned, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. Allah wants ease for you. He doesn't want difficulty for you. Meaning in Ramadan, if you're sick, you don't have to fast. If you're traveling, you don't have to fast. If the lady is pregnant, only 1 month, 2 weeks. If she's pregnant, she doesn't have to fast. She pays the fidya. That's it. That's what Abdullah bin Umar told his wife, his daughters, his slave girls to do. So be gentle on yourselves. Those older people from our community who don't have to fast, don't fast. It is a sadaqah from Allah. Take the sadaqah. My relative has migraines, serious migraines, not headaches. So every Ramadan, she wants to test the water, fast one day to see if she's going to get the migraine. And every year without fail, the migraine comes. Allah doesn't want that from us. So be easy and be gentle on yourselves, as Allah Ta'ala has been easy. He is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Al-Latif. He is Al-Halim. The greatest dua in Ramadan, Laylatul Qadr, Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbu al-afwa fa'fu anni. That's the greatest dua, Laylatul Qadr. A dua that shows and exemplifies Allah is gentle. Allah is merciful. Allah pardons. Allah doesn't want to make things difficult for us. So a lot could be said, but I just say that so as to be a dhikr, and the dhikra tanfa al-mu'mineen. Tfadli ya akhi.
So we're going to start posing you some questions, Shaykh. We have one question here from a brother who's asking, if the shaitan is locked up during Ramadan, why is it that a person continues to do evil things?
First of all, the Prophet says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, inna shaitan yajri fi bani Adam majra dam. The shaitan circulates in the son of Adam the way his blood circulates. Another authentic hadith, the Nabi said Allah Ta'ala created Adam and made him 60 cubic feet. So that's a normal man's one arm span from the tip of his middle finger to his shoulder. You put 60 of those on top of each other. That's how tall Adam was when he was first created. Since that time, Adam's children have been shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. But when Yawm al-Qiyamah comes, they'll be put into the Jannah, the normal size. The molar tooth will be like the Mount Uhud. So that's from what Allah knows the reality of it. So the shaitan circulates in our blood. When Allah created Adam, he left Adam's body laying down with no life before the angels blew into him the spirit. And then Allah allowed the shaitan to go in and out of Adam while he was lifeless. A shaitan came out of Adam and said, Inna hada la yatamalik. This creation cannot control himself. And that's why we do Ramadan. This creation, he can't control himself unless certain things are put in place to make him control himself. Like as-salah. Inna as-salah tanha anil fahsha wal munkar. Salat stops you from doing evil deeds. Ramadan teaches you taqwa, teaches you discipline, and so forth and so on. So first of all, why do we have these problems and people make mistakes? Because shaitan is inside of us. Everybody has a jinn, a qarina, that's telling you, do evil, do evil, do evil. So the qareen is not tied up. Number two, the interpretation comes from the hadith itself that the Prophet says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, marada al-shayateen. Marada mean ra dal. That means the renegades from the shayateen are tied up. The renegades, not just the regular ones. So we know that there are different types of shayateen. Like with Sulaiman, you had the ifrit from the jinn. The ifrit from the jinn was strong. He's not just a regular shaitan. So there are different levels of shayateen. Third interpretation is that the scholars of Islam, they said, if you can imagine a lion being tied to a pole, and the circumference of that pole allows the lion to wander in a circle for 20 yards, 30 yards, 50 yards. As long as you stay beyond that 30 yards, you won't get affected. But if you wander into that 30 yards, that lion is going to devour you. So as long as you do your adhkar, as long as you hold on to the religion, as long as you do the right thing, the shaitan won't bother you in Ramadan. He could just make waswas. That's all he could do, but he's weak. And that's why the Prophet told us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Maghrib comes, close the window, close the door. Shaitan can't open a window. He can't open up a door. Put a cloth over the top of the pot. Put the tops on pot. Shaitan can't lift anything off of that. He said, when you take your clothes off, say Bismillah. If you say Bismillah, that prevents the shaitan from seeing your aura. So as Allah said in the Quran, Inna kayda shaitani kana da'ifa. The plot and the plan of shaitan is weak. All he can do is make waswas, and Allah knows best.
We have another question here. How can I stop thinking too much during Ramadan? I always get thoughts about Allah's qadr, and I don't know if it's waswasa or it is my nafs. Please help. Thank you, Shaykh.
It appears to me that this is a classic case of waswas. Allah Ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, الذين إذا مستهم طائفة من الشيطان تذكروا فإذا هم مبصرون. Those people who, when the shaitan touches them, they get dhikr, waswas. They begin to make the dhikr of Allah, and lo and behold, they can see straight. So you stop that by making the dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal, by seeking refuge in Allah from the shaitan rajim. They say that the idle mind is the workshop of shaitan. So if a person is not busy, shaitan comes to him. So make yourself busy with reading the Quran and engaging in other things and saying to yourself, hey, I'm not going to let shaitan get the best of me. I'm bringing my A game to you, shaitan. And you just deal with it like that. And don't be a chump. Don't be a punk. Don't give in to the waswas. Make the dhikr of Allah, and Allah knows best.
I have a non-Muslim child and they see me fasting. How can I convince them of Islam through fasting? And how can I get them to become a Muslim during Ramadan?
Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned in the Quran to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam,
Sorry, brothers and sisters, we've lost the connection. We're going to try and reconnect with the Shaykh.
I can hear you.
Okay, sorry, Shaykh, we lost your connection. We'll start from the question again.
What's the question, my brother?
Yeah, regarding the brother who is a revert, I presume.
Allah mentioned to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you cannot guide those who you love, but Allah guides who He wants to guide. So the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't have the ability to guide his grandfather, didn't have the ability to guide his uncle, didn't have the ability to guide all his relatives or people he loved from his people. Allah guides who He wants to guide. There's an authentic hadith that said, when Allah Ta'ala created Adam, He took from Adam's loins all of Adam's children, and He threw light out, and the light went over some of his children, and the light missed others. Those who the light hit them, they're going to believe in Allah. And those who the light missed, they're not going to believe in Allah. So the qadr has already been written. We, Allah, the makers of those people that the light hit us and that we die on the light of al-Islam and the Tawheed. But nonetheless, we are people who believe in the qadr, but we still tie our camels and we make efforts. So what you should do, in my opinion, you know your child. You know what floats your child's boat. It may not be Ramadan and fasting is the thing that would trigger interest in al-Islam with them. Not necessarily. It could be some other aspect of their existence. So you talked about that thing which will grab their attention to al-Islam. And that's the meaning of the ayah, Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah wal maw'idatil hasana wajadilhum billati hi ahsan. Call to the way of your Lord with hikmah. Hikmah is things in a proper place, knowing what to talk about, how to talk about it, when to talk about it, and so forth and so on. And argue in a way that is best. Argue with them in a way that is best. So that's what you do with your child. It's not necessarily even talking about Ramadan. Ramadan may not be the thing that sparks an interest with them. Your child may be into science. Your child may be physically, the child just came off of some big trial or tribulation, and Allah spared their life. And you tell them that they're a dead man walking. Look how Allah, from that corona that hit you and you were about to check out. It could be anything. So as the ayat of the Quran said, "Badal insanu ala nafsihi basira." The human being knows his situation better than anyone else. You know your child better than me. I know my child better than you know my child. So I know there's a child that I have. All I have to do is do like this, and that child will sit down. The other child, I just look at him like that, he will sit down. But then there's the third child that Khadija.
Sorry, brothers and sisters, we're having a few technical difficulties. We will try to reconnect with the Shaykh.
It's giving me problems.
We're back with you, Shaykh. I think you answered that question pretty well. Barakallahu feek. So we'll move on to the next question. This seems like more of a technical question. I've heard that when you're praying, you don't have to read a surah after Surah Fatiha. So why does every masjid read a surah after Fatiha?
The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for Salat al-Fajr, for his Sunnah of al-Fajr, our mother Aisha said that he prayed and he read Surah al-Fatiha and that he didn't read a surah after it. So he did that for the Sunnah prayer of al-Fajr. And Allah Ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, فَقْرَ مَا تَيَسَّرَ لَكُم مِّنَ الْقُرْآنِ. Read what is easy for you to read from the Quran. And in the hadith of the man who made mistakes in his salat and the Prophet taught him how to pray, he said, when you close the door, because there's a lot of noise, please. And I know, close the door while you get it together, please. Don't worry. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught that man, and he told him, when you stand up for prayer, face the Qibla, say Allahu Akbar, ثُمَّ اقْرَأْ مَا تَيَسَّرَ لَكَ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ, and then read what is easy for you from the Quran. So the person reads what is easy. But we have that hadith that says, Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli. Pray as you see me praying. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he prayed, he read Surah Al-Fatiha and he read another surah, except in that Sunnah prayer. So someone shouldn't come and then pray Surah Al-Maghrib, Salat Al-Maghrib, and only read Surah Al-Fatiha and that's it, and say, hey, Rasulullah. No. We follow what he did by reading Fatiha and another surah, and Allah knows best.
Another question here is, it seems more relevant to our time. Is it better to do Tarawih at a masjid with no masks and no gaps? Or in that situation, is it better to read the salah at home? I think the question is asking if there's a masjid that is not doing social distancing well. And perhaps a person fears for their safety. Is it better for them to pray at home? I believe that is the essence of the question.
Well, the Prophet, he mentioned sallallahu alaihi wasallam, afdalu salat al-mar, salat al-maktuba, salat fi bayti ila al-maktuba. The best salat for a person is the salat in his house, except for the wajib prayer. So the best prayer, tarawih, the nawafil, should be done in the house. And this because the person is far away from riyah and so forth and so on. So your tarawih is better be done in your house, generally speaking. But if the person doesn't memorize a lot of the Quran and he wants to hear more of the Quran and pray with more of the Quran, because the best salah is the one you stand long qiyam, long qiyam. So if he prayed at home by himself, he's going to do short qiyam. So now in his case, go to the masjid and pray with them. They're reading longer and more than what you are able to do for yourself. And it's my personal opinion that it's better to go to a masjid that they're observing social distancing, because this is something we should be doing right now to protect ourselves and protect our community by Allah's permission.
Next question is, what does it mean when a Muslim dies during Ramadan? Our brother Ahmed, he has a relative that has just died. May Allah have mercy upon them. And what is the benefit of dying in Ramadan?
I don't know any dalil from the Quran or the Sunnah that the one who dies in the month of Ramadan gets any special reward. But there is a hadith that he says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, innamal a'malu bil khawatim. Verily, you will be judged based upon the last things that you do. So if a person is fasting and they died fasting, they died getting ready for fast, they died preparing mentally, spiritually for fasting, and they died during that time, they died coming out of the masjid, they died reading the Quran, they died giving dawah, they died saying La ilaha illallah, innamal a'malu bil khawatim. The deeds will be judged by the last thing that you do. So if this relative was fasting, was preparing to fast, had the need of fasting, then because of that, inshallah azza wa jal, they'll get the reward of dying in that blessed month and dying, preparing to do the good deeds of Ramadan, and Allah knows best.
Is eating too much at night allowed or not in a Ramadan? I have been gaining weight in a Ramadan, and how should I avoid this?
Eating too much in Ramadan and outside of Ramadan is something that is disliked, is something that's not permissible. The Prophet Sunnah, alayhi salatu wasalam, showed us that when a person eats, he should eat a third, and he should leave a third to drink and a third for the air. That's the justice of al-Islam as it relates to the stomach. The Prophet said in an authentic hadith, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, sharul wiya yamla'u ibn Adam batnahu. The worst vessel that the son of Adam can fill up is his stomach. So a third food, a third for drinking liquids, and a third for air. That's the justice. But your third is not like my third. I may eat more than you. You may eat more than me. It's each and every individual situation. So we shouldn't overeat in Ramadan or outside of Ramadan. And this is why we need this Ramadan. I was told by a physician that after a day or two of fasting, we start having this gas that really is offensive. And it's the stomach's way of rejuvenating itself after having all of that stress put on it for 11 months of eating the way Muslims eat. Ghee, processed food, all of this junk that we eat. Now we come to Ramadan and Allah makes this rahmah on us where our stomachs, we give it a break. Like everything deserves a break. So filling up one's stomach is not a good idea in Ramadan or outside of Ramadan.
And this is not necessarily a question that relates to Ramadan, but if you can provide a brief answer. Should one make the adhan in the ear of the newborn child?
There's a hadith that you should make the adhan in the right ear and the iqama in the left ear. Both of those hadith are not authentic. The great scholar of al-Islam, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, the student of Ibn Taymiyyah, rahmatullah alayhima, he has a book called Tuhfatul Wudud, the gift to the beloved. He had a relative who had a baby, and he wanted to give his relative a gift. So between Dhuhr and Asr, he wrote this book about how to welcome the newborn child. And the book has been translated. Not that book, but a book similar to it was translated by Dawood Burbank, Abu Talha. May Allah have mercy upon Abu Talha. So there's a book welcoming the newborn child. and they talk about that. So a lot of the scholars of Islam, even Ibn al-Qayyim, they brought the hadith that you should do this, but the hadith is not authentic and it shouldn't be done. It should not be done. And you'll find scholars saying the wisdom behind doing this is the first thing they're going to hear is the kalima of Tawheed and on so many things. The hadith is not authentic. The adhan in the right ear, weak. The iqam in the left ear, weak. And Allah is Allah.
We'll move on to the next question. The brother is asking that his employer recently found out that he is a Muslim and making him work more hours now because he is a Muslim. His situation is hard. They hate Muslims. So what should he do? Because he is finding it to fast in these circumstances.
Allah Ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah doesn't burden a person beyond his scope and his ability. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. He said another ayah. Fear Allah to the best of your ability. So what you have to do, brother, is look at the people who came before us and look at the trials and the tribulations that they went through. The trip that I just took to America was tough. It was the single most difficult trip that I've ever taken for dawah. But when I compare what I went through with what the companions had to deal with, mine was a walk in the park. They have to ride on camels and horses. And when they went to Hajj in Mecca, they came back. I can't imagine how tired they were. They went out for jihad. And when they came back, some of them were killed, left on the battlefield, buried, and others came back with wounds. They came home and they laid down on their beds, and their families came and took care of them. And their wounds were oozing blood and pus. And their families had to take care of that. All I did was came home, take a shower. I prayed and I went to sleep. And I've been sleeping ever since then. So you compare what they went through. And that's what the Prophet taught his companions. Some of the poor companions like Khabbab ibn Arat and those companions, Bilal ibn Rabah in Mecca. They came and found the Prophet reclining under the shade of the Kaaba. They say, Ya Rasulullah, because the kuffar were persecuting them and punishing them. أَفَلَا تَسْتَنْسُرُ لَنَا أَفَلَا تَدُعُ لَنَا. Why don't you help us? Ask Allah to help us. Why don't you make dua? Your dua is accepted. Look what these people doing. Prophet Muhammad sat up after reclining and relaxing. He said, there was a man from the people who came before you. He would be bought and they would put make a hole in the ground. They put him in that hole and they tie him up. And they would proceed to put a hot iron comb through that man and separate his bones from his flesh. And that would not make him leave his religion. He said, I swear by the one who my soul is in his hands. There's going to come a time where this religion is going to be prevalent, like those people who are against you, giving you a hard time. We are buying and purchasing their pubs, turning them into masajid. We are buying and purchasing their churches and synagogues, turning them into the masajid. The Prophet says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Inna Allah zawali al-ard fara'aytu mashariqaha wa magharibaha wa inna mulka ummati sayablughu ma zuwiya li minha. The world, the whole earth, the whole world was brought together to me in front of my eyes. Jibril, Allah, miracle. He made the world shrink so that the Prophet saw the east and the west. He said, verily, the dominion of my ummah is going to reach every part of this world. Every part. And Al-Islam is going to go into every house, whether that house is made out of mortar, whether it's made out of clay, whether it's made out of straw. Al-Islam is going into that house. Despite those people, Allah mentioned in the Quran, يُرِيدُونَ أَن يُطْفِئُوا نُورَ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ مُتِمُّ نُورَهُ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْكَافِرُونَ. They want to extinguish the light of Allah by blowing. But Allah is going to complete his light, even if the disbelievers detest it. So if all the Bani Adam on the earth at the same time decided we're going to blow the sun out at the same time, and they all blew, what's going to be the result? Hey, hot. Nothing's going to happen. So you remember that this religion is going to prevail. And you're one of the many people who tread the path of the non-Muslims giving you a hard time trying to stop Al-Islam. So be patient, and be strong, and don't be a punk, and don't be a chunk. What I mean by that is don't go in there and punch them in the face. And no, I'm not saying that, but be patient and be strong and have izzah. Because Izzah belongs to Allah and his messenger and belongs to the believers. So inshallah, we're going to make dua for you to continue to be strong. Don't stop fasting, because the companions went through a lot of stuff, more than what we went through, and it did not cause them to leave their religion. May Allah give you strength, my brother.
I mean, next question is, the question is asking, Shaykh, I'm planning to marry a Christian lady, but she's very closed-minded when it comes to religion, and I feel that she will not revert. What is the best thing to do?
Allah Azza wa Jal has allowed the Muslim man to marry the Christian woman as long as she's not making zina, as long as she's not a woman who is a lewd woman. Even if she's making shirk, and even if she's eating what's haram, drinking what's haram, Allah allowed that in his religion. But he can't marry a lady who's a mushrika, like a lady who is a Hindu or a Sikh or something like that. And the reason for that is that Allah mentioned in the Quran, Allahu ulaika yad'una ila an-nar wallahu yad'u ila al-jannah wal maghfirah minhu. Those people invite you to the hellfire, and Allah invites you to the Jannah and forgiveness from him. So if a man is bent on marrying the Jew or the Christian lady, then make sure that she respects him, and make sure that she loves him, and make sure that, you know, those positive things are present in her that he will look in a Muslim lady, look for in a Muslim lady other than the religion. So I'm not going to say don't marry her, because that's what you want to do, and Allah allowed that to happen. But I say, as Allah asks in the Quran, a rhetorical question, أَتَسْتَبْدِلُونَ الَّذِي هُوَ أَدْنَى بِالَّذِي هُوَ خَيْرٌ? Do you choose to replace that which is better with that which is worse? He said in authentic hadith, a woman is married for 4 reasons. He's married for her beauty. She's married for her beauty. She's married for her wealth. She's married for her lineage. She's married for her deen. فَاظْفَرْ بِذَاتِ الدِّينِ تَرَبَتْ يَدَاكَ. Marry the one who has religion, and you'll be successful. So if you want to marry the Christian girl, it's permissible, it's halal, as long as she's not making zina. As long as she's not making zina, you can marry her. And inshallah, we ask Allah to give you success in the cause to be a Muslim.
Brother's asking that he always manages to wake up and has suhoor, but then he falls asleep and misses Fajr. And how can he avoid this problem?
Astaghfirullah. Wake up for suhoor and you miss Fajr. That's from the shaitaan rajim. You know, the folder, how shaitan comes in front of us, from behind us, to the right and the left, because he just wants to jam up the program. So if a person wakes up for suhoor, take the suhoor according to the sunnah. And the suhoor according to the sunnah is to take it as late and as close to Fajr as possible. So one of the tabi'een said that the companions, may Allah be pleased with them, Kanu Asura an-nas. They were the quickest people when it was Maghrib time to break their fast. They didn't delay. And they were the slowest people when it came to eating the suhoor. So the sunnah of the suhoor is to eat it as close to the actual adhan time. All right? This thing that we have on the calendar, where you have the imsak sihri, you know, and they give us 10 minutes, 15 minutes before Fajr comes in. That's an innovation. And that's in disobedience to the Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if a person is taking suhoor an hour before Fajr, then he'll go to sleep. But if he's taking the suhoor 10 minutes before Fajr, he's not going to go to sleep, inshallah. So there you have, in following the sunnah of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam correctly, the answer to your dilemma.
To delay the suhoor.
Yeah, to delay the suhoor to as close to Fajr as possible.
Barakallahu feek. Next question. Assalamu alaikum. I'm from Bangladesh. Every year at the start of Ramadan, the Muslims fight amongst themselves whether Taraweeh is 8 rakat or 20 rakat. It suffocates me at times. Please pray for me. So the individual who is being affected mentally by some infighting on an issue.
Yeah, this is a sad thing. I mean, I think Many of us used to go through that, but as you get older, you tend to see things in a different light. When I was a new Muslim in 1986, if I saw the Hasidic Jews that were on the plane with me, I would look at them with disgust and not like them, and I would be agitated. But now at the age of 57, I don't look at them like that. It doesn't mean anything to me. I look at them in the way where I just say, Alhamdulillah. And there was a Bangladeshi lady that was on the plane with me. She was sitting in the middle and I was sitting on the left side of the plane. And we both were looking at the Jews, marveling at what they were doing. And then I caught her attention. She caught my attention. And we both shook our head like this. And we both raised our fingers like Al-Islam, La ilaha illallah. So it didn't bother me because I'm older now. But I do get bothered by things just like you get mentally bothered by things, like the hysteria of our Muslim community as it relates to COVID. Is it real? Is it not real? G5. I mean, it was hysteria. The people were doing my head in. I came off of WhatsApp. I came off of so many WhatsApp groups because everybody, plus his mother, became a scholar. People were talking about quantum theories, and they didn't even go to, they can't even speak English right. Don't even have an education. They're experts on WhatsApp. So the hysteria was really getting in my central nervous system. And I almost gave a khutbah where I almost had a meltdown because I was so upset because that did my head in. How and why do the Muslims believe every Amr, Bakr, and Zayd has a right to make an opinion? You don't have a right. Be quiet. Be quiet.
Just briefly lost the connection. Yeah.
I was affected by that mentally. So, can you hear me?
We can hear you now, Shaykh. Can carry on, please.
So, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Can hear you, yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Apologies, we've just lost the Shaykh, but we'll try to reconnect. You're back with the Shaykh.
So, my brother, as time goes on and you get older and stronger in Islam, this annual fighting and infighting of the Muslims, inshallah, won't affect you to that degree. And one of the things you can remember again is about the qadr. The qadr, guys, the qadr. Al-Iman and the qadr helps. Prophet Muhammad says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, da'awtu rabbi wa sa'altu thalatha fa'atani thannatain wa mana'ani wahida. I made dua to my Lord and I asked three things. He gave me two and didn't give me one. The two things he gave me is he won't allow my ummah to be destroyed by an external enemy. The second thing, he won't allow my ummah to be destroyed by a flood as it did Noah. And the one thing that he didn't give me, I asked my Lord not to allow my ummah to have infighting, civil war, civil strife. But Allah didn't give me that. So this is from the qadr of Allah Azza wa Jalla, especially as Yawm al-Qiyamah gets close. So consider yourself one of the fortunate people if you know, don't add your voice into the confusion. And just know that it's from the qadr of Allah. People are blameworthy, but you stay out of it and don't take it personal. And Allah knows best.
Some very good advice. Next question is asking whether women on their period can touch the Quran during Ramadan, whether this is something permissible, and if you can touch upon some of the evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah.
There's big ikhtilaf between the scholars on this issue. You can go back and easily find it, very easy. Go to Islamika, Islam Q&A by the Shaykh Salih bin Muhammad al-Munajjid. I'm of the opinion that it's permissible for her to touch the Quran, and that's because of the hadith of Aisha radiyallahu anha. When she was performing the Hajj, her period came and she was crying. Prophet Muhammad saw her crying and said, "What are you crying?" She said, "My period came," suggesting she can't pray, She can't do other things. She's blocked out of getting the reward. And this is the way the companion, the women included, this is how they used to look towards Ramadan. This is how they used to look towards worship. This is how they used to look towards worshiping Allah. Not with that view, oh, I'm tired. Oh, I got to fast. Oh, I have to pray Fajr. So when the Prophet found out why she was crying, he said to her, that's the sunnah of Allah in Adam's daughters. There's nothing to cry about. There's nothing to be sad about. That's the sunnah of Allah in Adam's daughter. He told her, Isna'i ma yasna'ul hajj, illa la tatufal bil bayt. He said, do everything that the pilgrim does, Aisha. Do Safa, Marwa, Muzdalifa, Arafah, give sadaqah, come into the masjid, read the Quran from your head, from the mushaf. Do everything that the pilgrim does, except don't make tawaf. Because tawaf around the Kaaba is a form of salat and you have to have wudu. So she's allowed to do everything that the pilgrim does. So the pilgrim sits in the masjid, the pilgrim uses the Quran and reads the Quran. That's one of the dalils. Another dalil, Sahih Bukhari, Rasulullah was making i'tikaf in the month of Ramadan and he wanted to comb his hair. And he told Aisha, who was connected to the masjid in the hujurat, the inner apartments, he said, bring me the comb. She said, I have my period, Ya Rasulullah. I don't want to bring you the comb. I don't want to touch anything that, he said, is your period in your hand? Is your period in your hand? So you can bring me the comb. Your period is not in your hand. So if you read the Quran and touch the Quran, your period is not in your hand. So the real najasa is the najasa of kufr, as Allah mentioned in the Quran. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu innama al-mushrikuna najis fala yaqrabu al-masjid al-haram ba'da 'amihim hadha. Oh, you believe. The polytheists, they are najis. They're najasa. Don't let them come to the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca after this year. So najasa, real najasa, is that the non-Muslim lady is clean. She has no period. But Allah described her as najis because the najasa here is kufr, shirk. Whereas the Muslim woman, she has a period and the blood itself is najis. But the Prophet told Abu Huraira, who came to the masjid, and Prophet Muhammad saw Abu Huraira walking towards him and suddenly he disappeared. When he saw Abu Huraira later on, he said, what happened? Proving that Rasulullah is not Hazir Nazir, proving that Rasulullah didn't know the unseen. Because he said, where were you? What happened? I saw you and you disappeared. He said, oh, Rasulullah was junub. I needed a ceremonial ghusl. So I didn't want to come to you in that state. He said, Innal mu'min la yanjis. The believer is never najas. Najis. No. So the lady can read the Quran, inshallah, with her hand, touching the hand. And Allah knows best.
Barakallahu feek. And this is back to the issue of the newborn putting honey in the mouth of the newborn. I think they mean specifically honey, or I'm not sure whether they're referring to the date.
The sunnah is to do what is known as a tahniq. Hannaka, yuhanniku, tahnika. Tahniq is to take dates, chew them up, and then put it in the mouth of the child. That helps the child. Allah said in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, istajibu lillahi wa lirrasul. Idha da'akum lima yuhyikum. Oh, you believe. Answer the call of Allah and His Messenger when they call you to that which will give you life. I'm African American. I come from the inner city in America. I knew nothing about dates in my life. Never heard of what a date was until I came into Islam. There's a Muslim brother, white sister. They come from Greenland. They come from Norway. They come from places where we never heard of dates. But as soon as we come into Islam, the date becomes a part of our life. And the date palm tree becomes an important tree in Islam. So now, when we have children, we get a date. We go out of our way to get dates for suhoor. We go out of our way for dates in Ramadan. You don't have to eat dates. And just as you don't have to eat dates to break your fast, you don't have to use dates for the honey for the child. But that was what the Prophet did because it was in his environment. So what he did is good for us. He said, the house that doesn't have dates, the people are impoverished. If you don't have dates in your house, then you have a house that is impoverished, faqir. So dates are important in our religion. So if a person doesn't have dates and he wants to give honey, real honey, then give honey. No problem. No, it's important. It's not that big of a deal, but stick to what the Prophet did. The medical people, one of the books I would advise you to get, again, written by Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, who wrote the book about the child. But the book you should get about the child, Welcoming the Newborn Child, by the brother Abu Talha, Dawud Burbank. He translated it. Ibn al-Qayyim wrote a book called At-Tib an-Nabawi, the prophetic medicine. And he has a chapter in there about the benefits of dates, the medicinal benefit of dates. Maryam, alayha salatu wassalam, when she had given birth to Isa ibn Maryam, she was all alone. And then the angel came to her and told her, Huzzi nakhla, stand up and shake that date palm tree. And the dates will tatasaqat, the dates will fall down and you'll be able to eat it. Why did Allah tell her to eat those dates? Because any person who loses a lot of blood, the scholars say, when you eat dates and things like that, it has the ability to replenish the blood, rejuvenate the body and all that kind of stuff. So yes, you should do this with your child with dates. But if you want to do it with honey, no problem. You want to do it honey, but I would advise just do it with dates. But if a person wanted to stretch out and do it with a Snickers bar or something like that, or Reese's peanut butter cup, I say to each his own. I wouldn't do that, but I won't say it's haram.
Sorry, is that specifically for the newborn?
That's for the newborn. The question is for the newborn. Do you give them honey or dates? Try to give them dates.
Just to add it, regarding you should take some medical advice before the peanuts as well, though, I think. But just to carry on.
What did you say about the peanuts? That the baby may be
I think sometimes they don't advise to give peanuts to newborns.
I'm not advising to give peanuts neither. But what I was saying, let's say someone wants to give a chocolate bar, the Snickers, the chocolate part, the outer part. And that's what I'm saying. If you want to do that, I'm not telling you to do that. I said do the dates. But thanks, doctor, for the clarification, because I don't want someone to go and give a real Snickers bar and say Abu Usama killed the people in Ramadan.
Barakallahu feek. Next question. The atheists, they ask why Allah created this gigantic universe when only Earth is sufficient for us. It's quite a deep question. If I can put that to you.
The atheists
say the reason for the creation of the entire universe when only Earth is what is sufficient for us.
I was invited a few years ago with Brother Abu Tayyib and some other brothers by KHAIR. That's under the leadership and direction of our brother Abdul Rahim Green. May Allah give those brothers the khair of the dunya and the khair of the akhirah. And their specialty and their forte is dawah to atheists and things like that. I used to think to give dawah to atheists, you had to be super smart and you had to have, you know, a lot of knowledge about science. But when I went to the seminar that the brothers brought me there so I can listen and learn, I was shocked to find out that all you had to do is learn a few things. So it's still not my forte. It's not what I do. So you ask Brother Abu Tayyib and the other brothers who are working with the brothers who the doctor is with, they can answer all of that stuff. That's their forte. And I'm in my lane. Allah Ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, وَلِكُلِّمْ وِجْهَةٌ هُوَ مُوَلِّيهَا فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. To each and every one of you, we gave you your lane. We gave you your path. So be in a race in your path. So this brother over here, his thing is he's the mu'adhin. He never misses the adhan in the masjid 5 times a day. And that brother, his thing, his path is he's on the right side of the first row. And that brother over there, he's the best of us in Birru Walidain. He takes care of his parents. And that brother over there, he's the Abu Bakr of our community, the money that he gives. And that sister over there, she's like the Khadija of our community, and that she gives so much sadaqah. Can you hear me?
Yes, well, we just, it was a bit choppy, but we got the we got most of that. Barakallahu feek.
Everybody takes his lane, and you get in your lane and stick to your lane, and don't get in other people's lane, and don't be a hater and hate other people because they're in their lane. So my lane is giving dawah to the Muslims and to the Christians. As for the atheists in this particular question, I'm sure Abu Tayyib and the other brothers who are putting on this program, they know better answers than I would give, and Allah knows best.
We'll move on to the next question. Did Allah record every small detail before he created us? For example, did he write down that I would scratch my hand at this specific moment? We'll make this the last question, Shaykh. I think the question is relating to the answer is
Allahumma na'am. Allahumma na'am. It's verily yes. The Prophet says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, inna Allah kataba maqadir al-khalaiq 50,000 sana qabla an khalaqa as-samawati wal-ard wa arshuhu kana ala ma'. Allah wrote down every single thing in creation, everything, 50,000 years before he created the heavens and the earth, and his arsh, his throne, was over the water. And another ayat of the Quran, Allah Ta'ala said, Wallahu khaliqukum wa ma taf'alun. Allah created you people, and he created what you do as well. He created you, and he created what you do. The Prophet says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, one of you, your creation is brought together in your mother's stomach for 40 days as a sperm, and then 40 days as a leech-like clot, and then for 40 more days as a morsel of flesh. And then the angel is sent to breathe into him the spirit of life, and is commanded to write 4 things. One of the 4 things is actions and what he's going to do, and whether he's going to be successful or not successful. Going to write down how much money he's going to make. Going to write down what his lifespan is going to be. So yes, this right here has been created by Allah, and Allah knew that I would have my watch on my right hand, and I would be talking to you people at this precise second, and everything else that's going on in the dunya and the universe. Rabbul Alameen, he knows all of that before it happened. So we worship him and worship him alone. And that's why that brother who's having problems with those kuffar giving him a hard time. And that's why those of us who may trying to get adjusted to Ramadan, you want some motivation and incentive, then just know that the one we're fasting for is the one who knows everything. And he's almighty and he's all powerful. And we ask him to have rahmah upon us and to be easy with us and to give us the success of the dunya and the akhirah.
We're going to close the show here. Barakallahu feek, Shaykh, for your giving up your time from your busy schedule to, share the knowledge with us. We really appreciate this. And inshallah, we will carry on next week. Apologies to the questions I've not been able to ask, but there will be a further opportunity next week to ask some more questions. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.